Good morning, everybody. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people. Today is March 11th, 2025, and I have been waiting to see what the Lord would have me to share in these days that we are in leading up to Purim. And the interesting thing about the month of Purim, the month of Adar, is that the Purim takes place on the 14th day of the 12th month. The execution or the annihilation of the Jews was actually planned for the 13th day of the 12th month. And so back in 2012, I received a sign on December 12th of 2012. Now at this time it was the middle day of Hanukkah. 12/12/12 was the middle day of Hanukkah, and I received a sign from the Lord that the Lord called the sign of his coming revealed. And I have shared with you over the years how this was my calling. This was my calling to this prophetic ministry that I am sharing since December of 2012. I received a sign in the sun. Okay, and I want to go over this sign that I received, how I received it, and I want to talk to you about Adar 12, which is also known as the Feast of the Dedication, but for other reasons. So I want to make a comparison between Hanukkah and Adar 12, which is the lead up to Purim, the lead up to this coming blood moon that we have. And so here is this sign that I received on December 12th of 2012. 12/12/12. The sign of his coming revealed. Now it's pretty interesting. I'm just noticing that when I finally had this up on my blog, it ended up being March 12th. This is when I had it uploaded to my blog, A Trumpet for My People. 3 months later, when I finally got my blog set up and I began writing. The sign of his coming revealed. This is the word of the Lord. The Lord has revealed to me the final sign of the Lord's return, as Jesus himself prophesied in Matthew 24. The sign of his coming. I ask you to please read this carefully. Let him who reads understand. The world must know. This is the promised sign of his coming that Jesus gave to us 2,000 years ago. Time is of the essence. How did the Lord reveal the sign to me? From Matthew 24. The disciples asked Jesus in verse 3, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" What God revealed to me was that in verse 15, when Jesus talked about the original abomination of desolation, he was answering their question of when. When did the first abomination happen? Hanukkah. This is known through the story of the Maccabees in 165 BC. It was after the abomination that the temple was rededicated, and thus the festival of Hanukkah began. This is also known as the Feast of the Dedication, and Jesus recognized it in John 10:22 through 23. Then through the book of Daniel in 9:27, I knew that the abomination talked about during the tribulation would happen midweek. That is what is prophesied during the tribulation at the 3.5-year mark, midway through the 7-year tribulation. The Antichrist would sit down and demand to be worshipped from the temple of God. Then I saw the dates of this year's Hanukkah in 2012. All of God's greatest moments and signs come during Jewish feast days. This year's Hanukkah dates December 12/8/12 through 12/16/12, and midweek was 12/12/12. I had to know the hour of the sign, and God revealed it to me through the 10 virgins. Matthew 25:6, midnight, Jerusalem. 4 p.m. Central. I first thought it would be 4 a.m. Central, but then it was clarified to me. The sign came at exactly the hour specified, midnight Jerusalem time, 4 p.m. Central. I knew it was coming, and I had 20 people there with me to watch. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the sign that I received. And all of this leading up to the sign would absolutely mean nothing if the sign did not come. So what gives validity to everything that was revealed to me was that the sign actually came. And the sign, I knew when it was coming, and I was able to watch the sign accordingly and receive the sign because I knew when it was coming. And so what was revealed to me that the sign would come on Hanukkah. This is when the abomination happened. The abomination happens midweek. So midweek Hanukkah, 12/12/12. And I had to know the hour of the sign. And the hour of the sign was revealed to me through the 10 virgins, midnight. And knowing that God's clock is Israel, midnight Jerusalem. So my sign came on 12/12/12 at midnight, another 12, okay? So my sign was 12/12/12/12. The sign came here in Yucatan for all of us to see, and it was the most spectacular show of God's glory I've ever seen in my lifetime. This was not only a once-in-a-lifetime sign, this was a sign and date God planned from the beginning of all creation. At exactly midnight Jerusalem time and 4 p.m. Central time, all of us that were there could see a cloud. Shooting out from around the back of that cloud were well-marked reflections and rays that started to grow little by little until they extended out through the full expanse of the sky. Later we saw that from behind that cloud a little ball started peeking through, and it began to grow until it took the full form of the sun. Then it began changing colors through every color of the rainbow: fuchsia, yellow, blue, green, pink, purple, red, and many other beautiful combinations of colors. Then it came out from behind the cloud and changed its aspect and became a bouncing globe, and again was still changing colors, but the sun was now in all its brilliance and might, and you could sense the glory of it, yet you could look directly at it without it hurting your eyes. It was the glory of God Himself. The whole show lasted 75 minutes, and it usually gets dark here now at 4:50 p.m., but it was still light at 6 p.m. even though the sun set at 5:15. 20 of us all saw it because we knew exactly when it would appear. We can all testify to it, the sign of His coming. Okay, so the Lord revealed to me the time of the sign, Hanukkah, which is also known as the Feast of the Dedication. The date of the Feast of the Dedication is 12/12/12, midweek Hanukkah, and the time was midnight. Then the sign came, and we were able to watch the sun directly with no filter or any other devices. We were able to watch the sun directly for 75 minutes. Okay, it was the glory of God. And all of us that were here, I brought my wife and my kids and my wife's family and other people that were here with us. There was 20 of us. And I was very excited about what I had received and what the Lord was revealing to me. And I said, let's go up onto the roof and watch. I did not know what was coming. I did not know what to expect. I was thinking, and this is why I did not film it, I wasn't thinking about filming anything. I was thinking that this was going to be the rapture of the church. And so everybody asked me later, why didn't I get this on video? And it's like, well, I was taken up in the glory and the everything that I was receiving, and I was expecting to be raptured at any moment during this event that God gave me. And so This happened on 12/12/12. Okay, so now we are coming up on Purim, and there is a sign in the heavens on Purim. It's a blood red moon, total lunar eclipse that's happening on March 13th and March 14th. Purim is happening between March 13th, March 14th, and March 15th. And so Purim is the month Adar, and Adar is the 12th month. Okay, now if you look in the book of Esther, if we look in the book of Esther, in chapter 9, we're going to see that the month of Adar, the 12th month, on the 13th day, the time came for the king's command and his decree to be executed. On the day that the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, the opposite occurred, in that the Jews themselves overpowered those who hated them. So Purim was going to be the execution of the Jews. And the plan of the Jews' enemies was turned against them. And the Jews were saved, and the enemies of the Jews were annihilated. And so Purim begins on the 13th day of the month of Adar, the 13th day. So one day before Purim, one day before the plan is to be carried out, would be the 12th day of the 12th month. Okay, so from my sign, which was 12/12/12, connected to, the Feast of the Dedication. This is also known as the Feast of Dedication, and Jesus recognized it. The Feast of the Dedication. And my sign came on 12/12/12. Okay, so I started looking up here information about Adar 12. Okay, Adar 12. Is there something significant about Adar 12? All right. Adar 12. Adar 12 history. The 12th day of Adar in the Hebrew calendar has been associated with the dedication of Herod's temple in 11 BCE and was also a minor holiday. This is also confirmed in Chabad.org, Wednesday 12 Adar, which is March 12th, 2025. This is actually tomorrow. Okay. In Jewish history, Herod's temple was dedicated on the 12th of Adar in 11 BCE. Adar 12. Adar 12 marks the dedication of Herod's renovations on the Second Holy Temple in Jerusalem in 11 BCE. Herod was king of Judea in the 1st century BCE, who constructed grand projects like the fortresses of Masada and Herodium, the city of Caesarea, and fortifications around the old city of Jerusalem. The most ambitious of Herod's projects was the rebuilding of the temple, which was in disrepair after standing over 300 years. Herod's renovations included a huge man-made platform that remains today the largest man-made platform in the world. It took 10,000 men 10 years just to build the retaining walls around the Temple Mount. The western wall that we know today is part of that retaining wall. The temple itself was a phenomenal sight, covered in gold and marble, and as the Talmud says, he who has not seen Herod's building has never in his life seen a truly grand building. Okay, so Adar 12 is the rededication, the dedication of Herod's renovations on the Second Temple. Here is another article that confirms this, just to show you that this is not just from one different source, but it's from a number of sources. Adar 12. Dedication of Herod's renovations on the Second Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Herod was king of Judea in the 1st century BCE, who constructed grand projects like the fortresses of Masada and Herodium, the city of Caesarea, and fortifications around the old city of Jerusalem. The most ambitious of Herod's projects was the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. In the year 19 BCE, King Herod floated the idea of rebuilding and renovating the Holy Temple, which was in disrepair after standing over 300 years. Though many Jews were wary of Herod's motives, the renovation was completed 8 years later. So, on 12 Adar, in the year 11 BCE, the Second Temple was rededicated. And so my question is, was there a feast day, or was there a holiday or a memorial service that remembered the rededication of the temple on the 12th day of Adar? And so I asked Google in a search, was Adar 12 celebrated as the Feast of the Dedication? And the answer is this: yes, Adar 12 was the day the Second Temple was rededicated in 11 BC, and this day is sometimes called the Feast of Dedication. The Feast of Dedication is another name for Hanukkah, and also another name for Hanukkah, a Jewish holiday that commemorates the rededication of the temple. So we have this idea of Adar 12 being connected to the rededication of the temple in 11 BC, while the rededication of the temple, the Feast of the Dedication, also known as Hanukkah, was another separate holiday that was connected to the Maccabees after the abomination had taken place under Antiochus Epiphanes. So the temple was defiled. The abomination happened under Antiochus Epiphanes, and they rededicated the temple in the year 164 or 165 BCE. That was Hanukkah. But Adar 12 is also known as the rededication of the temple. This day is sometimes called the Feast of the Dedication. Adar 12. 12:12. Okay. Now, if this happened in 11 BCE, and year 0 is a lot of times not counted because it's year 0. And so there's a missing year when you change over from 1 BC to 1 AD. There's a lot of times this missing year because the year 0. And so 11 BC may be actually 12 BC if you consider the fact that 0 may be a missing year. So the rededication of the temple may also be considered 12, 12, 12. Okay, Adar 12 is 12:12, and this was rededicated in 11 BC, which may be considered 12 BC when you take into consideration year 0, that a lot of times isn't even counted, but it is an entire year, the year 0. Okay, so 12, 12, 12. Okay, now if we go into John chapter 10 and look at the Feast of the Dedication in Jerusalem, and it was winter. Okay. Now, we have always looked at this as Hanukkah. This is from the start. We have never even considered this minor holiday from which Herod rededicated the temple on Adar 12 in the year 11 BCE, and this was a day that was considered, sometimes called, the Feast of the Dedication. Okay, Adar 12. This day is sometimes called the Feast of the Dedication. So what Feast of dedication was Jesus celebrating in Jerusalem. Okay. Now, there are a couple clues here that may actually link us more to Adar and not to Hanukkah, which was the 9th or 10th month, but Adar, which is the 12th month. Closer to the end of the year, closer to Nisan, and closer to Passover. And this links us closer to Passover when we look at the story of Lazarus. Because the story of Lazarus was a lead up to Passover. And it's shown to us in John chapter 11, the connection to the closeness of Passover, which may mean that this feast of the dedication that Jesus was actually celebrating in John chapter 10 was the feast of the dedication of Adar 12 that commemorated the rebuilding of the temple by Herod, which was rededicated on the 12th day of Adar. Okay, so let's look at the story of Lazarus. So the first clue we have in John chapter 11 connected to Lazarus is, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. And so we have 12 hours in a day connected to the equinox or the equilux, connecting us to the end of winter and the beginning of spring. Okay, this is connected to the sickness and the death and the resurrection of Lazarus. Then in verse 38, after Lazarus is raised from the dead, then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, "Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not give to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me, but because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me." Now when he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And he who had died came out, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Loose him and let him go." Then we have this plot to kill Jesus. Then many of the Jews who had come to Mary and had seen these things Jesus did believed in him. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them the things Jesus did. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered a council and said, "What shall we do? For this man works many signs. If you let him alone like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation." And one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." Now this he did not say on his own authority, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and not for that nation only, but also that he would gather together in one the children of God who were scattered abroad. Then from that day on they plotted to put him to death. Therefore Jesus no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there into the country near the wilderness to a city called Ephraim, and there remained with his disciples. And the Passover of the Jews was near. And many went from the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover. So we've seen before the connection between the John chapter 10, the Feast of the Dedication, connected to the The resurrection of Lazarus, which was connected very closely in time to the Feast of the Dedication that Jesus celebrated. And at the end of the resurrection of Lazarus, we have this connection to the Passover being near. So does this put the timing of this Feast of Dedication actually in the 12th month? Could this be the day that Jesus was in Jerusalem in the temple and spoke all of these words, which actually referred to the rapture, when he used the word harpazo about the sheep being snatched? The sheep are being snatched. The Feast of the Dedication in Jerusalem, and it was winter. Adar 12 is sometimes called the Feast of the Dedication. Okay, so I just wanted to share this with you. I have never seen this aspect of this, but as we are leading up to this very important blood moon on March 13th, March 14th, Adar 12 is the 12th day of the 12th month. And I had never seen that there was anything significant about this day, but it's actually a holiday called the Feast of the Dedication. Could this be what is referred to in John chapter 10? That would be amazing that this is connected to the day before Purim, the day they have planned to execute the Jews, and one day prior to their plan, God is going to snatch his bride on the Feast of the Dedication, Adar 12, March 12th, 2025. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you're blessed by this information. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people, the sign of his coming revealed.